When I visit a climbing gym, I see people train wrist rolling from time to time. I have no idea what it is all about, and I never bother to find out more about it. However, the max grade I can climb, which is V7, has been the same for the past 2 years. So I know I need to change things up and experiment new things and see what works. Einstein once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Therefore, I decided to try out training wrist rolling for 30 days. First, I went to the gym and see the max weight that I could wrist roll for 1 rep. I started with 10 pounds. In my mind, I expected it to be effortless, but it was actually surprisingly challenging. I then tried 15 pounds. I was still able to do it, but it felt near max effort. I tried 20 pounds, and not surprisingly, I could barely get it off the ground. After searching the weight rack, I found an 18-pound kettlebell. I was only able to get it halfway up. I was very surprised that my 1 rep max was only 15 pounds. When I woke up the next day, my entire upper body was very sore. My body doesn't get nearly as sore from training one-arm pull-ups nowadays, so this was pretty shocking to me. The intensity of wrist rolling can't be higher than that of the one-arm pull-up, right? It feels like wrist rolling activates some parts of my muscles that have never been activated before. Realizing how little I knew about wrist rolling, I decided to reach out to Jason, who is a doctor of physical therapy and a sports and orthopedics clinical specialist, for advice. He also runs an extremely underrated YouTube channel called Hooper's Beta, which you should definitely check out. What part of the body does wrist rolling trains, and what's the main benefit of it?
So wrist rolling will primarily train the wrist extensors or the wrist flexors, but you're also going to have an effect on the elbow flexors as well. The main benefit of wrist rolling is to work those forearm muscles. You can use it, like I mentioned before, to train the wrist flexors, but typically the greatest benefit will be antagonistic wrist extension training.
Yeah, and I often heard the term of training antagonists is important, but I never really fully understand why.
When we go to grip and we flex, our wrist wants to extend because that extension, that angle, creates a stronger grip position. If I were here, that grip is not going to be as strong. So whenever we grip something and we are working those flexors really hard, the wrist extensors have to stabilize to put us in these better positions. So not only will it help your strength of your grip and finger flexion, it can help prevent overuse injuries by training those antagonistic muscles, and it helps with a lot of stability. Doing antagonistic training has multiple benefits.
In terms of wrist rolling, is there anything that we should be careful in terms of the form?
Start with your wrists in that pronated position, so your palms will be facing down, and you want to have your arms by your side, so your elbows are going to be bent to 90 degrees. A lot of people will hold their arms straight out in front of them with their elbows straight. That's a big mistake because then you're essentially turning this into a shoulder exercise because the shoulders in that position are much more likely to fatigue before the forearms would. And then when you're actually doing your repetitions, you want to be aware of the amount of flexion that you're getting from your elbows. So how much the elbows are bending during that motion. Basically what is happening is your wrists aren't strong enough to curl that weight up. The compensation at the elbow will basically change the effect gravity has. So instead of that weight coming straight down, as you flex your elbow, it's coming here. So now that gravity is pointing straight down through here, it's a lot easier for your wrist to be able to do that motion. So that's a compensation we want to look for because you may be doing more weight than you actually can comfortably tolerate.
So I also do realize when I do the first initial measurement, I do realize my elbows, it wants to go out. Why is training wrist rolling good for climbing? How would training wrist rolling help me climb better?
The two primary benefits are working on your antagonistic muscles, and most importantly, because you can work on concentric and eccentric motions. The eccentric is the focus on this because eccentric training is one of the better tools we have, not only for strengthening like our muscles and connective tissue, but it's often actually used a lot in rehab. They've done a lot of research on eccentrics to treat tendinopathies. Eccentric load forces better adaptation. It can potentially prevent an injury or help you recover from one.
So if I'm understanding correctly, does that mean that when I do the wrist rolling, the lowering part is actually what's the most important part?
Yep, that is correct. So, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make is they'll roll the bar up and then just let it slide right back down, just kind of loosen the grip and let the bar roll in their hands. That lowering part is harder to do because it takes more control. It kind of is more natural to just like, no, I'll just let it go back down because I feel like I'm getting the work here while I'm shortening and pulling it back up. But it is correct. The lowering is actually more important and where you should really work on that control as it comes back down.
What would be a good training routine you will recommend for me on the wrist roller for the next 30 days?
I would recommend people doing this after climbing or as part of a rehab or prehab days. And I recommend usually doing something like this twice a week. Sometimes up to 3 times a week is fair. As you're doing it for like your sets and repetitions, we want to choose the correct weight that would allow you to perform like 1 or maybe 2 complete roll up and downs. And you consider that to be like a set. You'd perform like 3 to 4 total sets with a good rest period in between. If you're spending like 30 to 60 seconds on the wall, you don't need to be wrist rolling for 3 minutes. You want to work a similar energy system so that those improvements in the wrist roll training are going to translate well to your style of climbing.
And thank you so much, Jason, for taking the call and then collab for this video. I really appreciate it. Based on the advice from Jason, I started training with 3 sets of 1 rep with 10 pounds post-climb twice a week. My muscles also felt way less sore the next day, so it seems like my body was adapting to wrist rolling. On day 11, I felt a bit stronger and decided to increase the weight to 12 pounds. I trained and trained and trained. 30 days flew by really fast, and it's time to measure my 1 rep max. I decided to start with 20 pounds, and to my surprise, I was able to roll it up quite easily. I increased the weight to 22.5 pounds. To my surprise again, I was able to roll it up. I increased the weight again to 25 pounds. I was able to roll it up with near max effort. After taking a long rest, I gave 28 pounds a try, but I could only barely get it off the ground. So just with 30 days of training, I improved from 15 pounds to 25 pounds, which is a significant 67% of improvement. This proves again that if you are a beginner at something, all you need to do is put in the work consistently and you will be able to see good progress. I know you're gonna ask the $1 million question. Yeah, you wrist roll better, but did you actually climb better? Obviously, I have to climb better according to the science explained by Jason. Unfortunately, I haven't sent a V8 since this experiment, so I cannot prove it to you anecdotally. The improvement is most likely like improving from V7.3 to V7.5, the kind of improvement that you can't see for sure. Recently, I have sent a Moonboard V6 and a bunch of Moonboard V5s. I'm not sure if those count in your eyes, but in any case, I feel like I improved. And I would suggest you try out wrist rolling as I did if your max grade has been the same for a long period of time. Thanks for watching. The wrist roller I used in the video is from a small brand called Reg Climbing. I know you can get a random PVC pipe and DIY a wrist roller yourself. But if you want a wrist roller that feels amazing, sustainable, and is of high quality, you should definitely click the link in the video description to check it out. Reg Climbing is based in Europe, so definitely check them out if you happen to be in Europe. Full disclosure, I'm not sponsored, but I will earn a commission for each purchase. This is a great way to support my channel as well as small, passionate climbing brands. I turned down 95% of product shower requests from various brands because I don't want to recommend products I don't even use on this channel. I will only recommend products on this channel that I truly found useful. So be sure to check out the link in the video description below.